OU was selected to finish 8th in SEC for 2024. Are their expectations too low? Can they prove the doubters wrong and launch themselves into the top tier in SEC in year one? The Oklahoma Sooners are going to shock the world in 2024. Let's double click on that.
Since the end of the 2021 season, Oklahoma has been under a microscope when they lost their head coach after a run of dominance in the Big 12. After a 6-7 campaign in 2022, OU rebounded with a 10-3 season. 2022 was their first season with a losing record since 1998, with 2023 being more representative of their output since 2000.
So why are people underplaying the recent success of the Sooners? Mostly it's due to the schedule they were handed.
Of the 7 teams projected in front of the Sooners, OU plays 6 of them, 3 on the road and 1 at a neutral site. So, looking at it in this light, the apparent indictment on Oklahoma is more related to the endorsement of the other teams in the SEC versus what they actually think of OU. However, are their expectations of those other teams placed properly in comparison to the Sooners?
Let's take a look at how they stack up in comparison to the teams in front of them.
In the last 10 seasons, OU has the 3rd best winning percentage when they were favored, finishing behind just Alabama and Georgia. They have also been favored the 2nd most of these top 8 teams, right behind Bama. Just looking at the AP poll and the college football playoff rankings the last 10 years, OU ranks 2nd for most times appearing in the top 5 in the AP poll during the season, 3rd for AP poll top 5 finishes, tied for 3rd for most times appearing in the top 5 for the college football playoff rankings, and 3rd for top 5 college football playoff finishes.
When looking at wins from the last 5 seasons, Oklahoma ranks 3rd among these teams. When only considering the last 3 years, they are tied for 4th.
In regards to recruiting and talent, looking back at the last 5 years, OU is 5th in this group, outperforming Tennessee, Ole Miss, and Missouri, and just barely trailing Texas. Comparing OU to the SEC for success rate on defense and offense, they managed to group themselves into an elite group among Georgia and LSU. With PPA, OU was once again in the same proximity of Georgia. However, when it came to short yardage situations on both sides of the ball, OU was in a league of their own, displaying their physicality on the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball, showing they are SEC ready. In 2023, offensively, they were 3rd for first downs, 3rd for passing yards, 2nd for passing touchdowns, 3rd in rushing touchdowns, and 4th for total yards.
Defensively, they were 2nd for tackles for loss and 1st in total interceptions, interception yards, and interception touchdowns.
Lastly, looking across 80 advanced metrics, ranking each team based on how frequently they appeared in the top 5 and top 3 of each metric in the past 20, 10, 5, 3, and 1 seasons, OU finished 3rd behind Georgia and Bama and some distance ahead of LSU. Only considering last year, they were 3rd in top 5 finishes and tied for 2nd for the top 3.
Consistently, it seems like Oklahoma has a good argument for being considered a top 3 or 4 program in the SEC, being grouped into the same conversation as Georgia and Alabama, which makes it odd for why the expectations are so low for Oklahoma given their recent and historical success. Most of this has to do with the impact that 2022 had on the brand and image of Oklahoma. Although 7 losses is a lot for a program like OU, in what fashion were they losing these games? Let's examine that further.
In Venables' 10 losses in 2 seasons since taking over, 8 occurred on the road or a neutral site. 7 of those were by 7 points or less, and in the other 3 losses, Oklahoma didn't have their starting QB play the entire game or play at all. Of the 1,576 plays in OU's losses, they had over a 50% chance of winning those games 42% of the time, with 3 of those games having a better than 50% chance of winning over half of the game. Against Texas Tech, their odds of winning the game was above 50% for 74% of the game, while West Virginia, they were more likely to win 94% of the game.
These were close losses in which OU was competitive throughout the game, with an average scoring margin of just 12 points. If you exclude the 2 lopsided losses in which the Sooners were shorthanded, the scoring margin shrinks to just 5 points. Losses are never encouraging, but Sooner fans should feel comforted knowing that 2 of the greatest college football coaches to ever do it had similar trajectories, Nick Saban and Kirby Smart.
In Nick Saban's first season, the Tide finished 7-6, with a scoring margin of just 6 points. He followed that up with a 12-2 season, dropping their final 2 games with a scoring margin of 12.5. In year 3, the Tide won the national championship. With Kirby Smart, he began his run at Georgia going 8-5, losing with a scoring margin of 10 points. In year 2, Smart and the Bulldogs lost in the national championship. Both Smart and Saban had new offensive coordinators and defensive coordinators on their staff by year 3, similar to Venables having a new offensive and defensive coordinator going into his 3rd season.
Although OU didn't make a playoff run in year 2, little attention has been given to what Venables has done in just 2 seasons to make this a much more complete team. The expectation was that OU would fall off offensively with a new play caller in town, but that never happened.
After dipping to number 33 for team offense in 2022 and 13th in total yards per game, the OU offense bounced back, finishing 3rd in the country for yards per game and 4th in team offense in 2023. After finishing 19th in offensive efficiency and 55th in defensive efficiency in 2022, Venables and his team rebounded with growing to 9th in offense and 11th in defensive efficiency, as well as finishing ahead of LSU, Missouri, Ole Miss, and Tennessee for overall efficiency. OU also ranks in front of Alabama, Tennessee, and Ole Miss for returning production percentage at 62%, with lots of experience on the defensive side returning, as well as having one of the deepest wide receiver rooms in the conference.
Oklahoma's expectations are largely dependent on the schedule they were given. However, after looking at the recent and historical data, OU appears to be a more well-rounded, consistent, and mature program compared to most of the teams projected to land in front of them. Can the Sooners run the table, take over the SEC, and make their presence known right away in their new conference?